Well, mushrooms seem to all be taboo here. I was collecting and identifying mushrooms for years, having been experienced and giving lectures and really seeming to know what a chanterelle is, but my own family wouldn't want to eat mushrooms I found in the woods, and it was just always matter of fact. You know, you can touch any mushroom, you can smell any mushroom. There's nothing wrong with like exploring them. And the culture here is, it's either deadly, or it's a drug, or it's in a grocery store. I mean, that's kind of it. My name is Ancil, and it's hard to see why someone would not be interested in hunting mushrooms. Every time I walk through the woods, and I'll do the same trails for a decade at a time, I'll see something I've never seen before. The taxonomy is ever changing, so even the science can't keep up with what we're finding. And they're magnificent little structures. There are different life forms, but let's say a lot of mushrooms are decomposers, and they're cleaning the world around us. And a lot of mushrooms are also mycorrhizal, establishing symbiotic, mutualistic symbiosis with trees. So they not only break down and help maintain the forest floor, but they also are a fundamental part of the structure that allows the forest itself.
So is a club mushroom, like, do you identify it differently than like gills, pores, and teeth?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
It's just
So it's gills, pores, teeth, and clubs?
club and bracket. It's kind of like overwhelming how many little smudges of color as a species of mushroom. And then we're going to climb the only hill in South Georgia. There was only one hill, and here it is. All right, we just found a mushroom, and I don't know what this mushroom is, so I'm going to dig it up partially so we can see all the features of said mushroom. It's kind of the rust color on the gills, makes me think Cortinarius. But I cannot say what this is. I broke it as I picked it. It's raining. There's only one of them. We'd have to find more of these to give it a solid ID or collect it and take a spore print. The spore print should always be first until you're really familiar with it. And that's when you separate the cap from the stem and you set that cap on a white or multicolored sheet of paper, usually for 24 hours. And what you're doing is you're letting the spores that come from between these gills, from between the lamella, and you're letting them collect on that paper. So when you get them in mass, you can see the color of them. Okay, I found here a species of Suellus. It's a polypore species, and you can see that this one, the veil has not parted yet, so it's still covering the pore surface, protecting it until it's mature enough to spread spores. I can kind of remove this tissue a little bit, and you can see the pore surface revealed underneath. It's edible, but it tastes really bad, so. Mycelium is literally everywhere. Every handful of soil has hundreds of miles of hyphal networks connected. It's also breaking down all the leaf litter in every down log we see here. I'm sure it's growing on our skin and our scalps in places, things like that. Mycelium definitely wraps itself around the entire world. Some people have guessed that a quarter of the Earth's biomass is fungal because of this. And you can see a little discoloration here. The fungus, it likes water a lot, but it can get too wet where it'll drown. So the mushroom will do this thing called guttation, where it gets rid of excess moisture. So you'll see these colorful little drops on it a lot of times. We found a Trametes species. I've always called it Trametes cubensis. That's probably an outdated name. It's also a good example of the indeterminate growth. Some mushrooms will push leaf litter and everything aside, and they'll even grow through concrete and things like that, just like a seedling will. But these, you can see it's growing over the leaf, and it's non-toxic, but it's tough as leather, so we would not want to eat it. This might be a puffball. It is a puffball. And all puffballs are edible if you get them before they sporulate inside, before they puff as puffballs. I think puffballs look super cool in slow-mo.
Oh, do a slow-mo.
Those are hundreds and thousands of spores every time you poof it. The ejaculate of the mushroom. We have Tremella mesenterica, the witch's butter mushroom. It's a jelly fungus, so it can be eaten raw. It doesn't have the rigid structure that a lot of mycelium or hypha that form the mushroom do. It is flavorless, it tastes like water, and we'd be in dire straits if we were going to eat this thing. But it's very common. Tremella.
What are we hunting for?
Chanterelles. So we've got several different species here, but I'm more specifically after the Cantharellus lateridius. The smooth chanterelle has more shallow ridges underneath. It's more robust, it's heavier, it's cleaner. It's just the better variety. And we can come out here. I mean, this is 5-10 minutes of looking. Chanterelles are in huge numbers right now.
A little bit more about the culture of mushroom hunting, what kind of people it brings to it.
Yeah, I would say there's different demographics there. A lot of, most all of them are naturey, science inquisitive people. There's definitely divisions amongst the taxonomy nerds who just want to go for a walk and know the binomial, and they don't really care about it outside of naming it and claiming it or understanding more about what it is. There's a huge team of people that are only after edibles, that only go out for certain times a year for a certain mushroom, or just all the time, but with that in mind to eat them. There's a huge group of people that are only after magic mushrooms. Here in the South, that would be mostly our summer seasons. The similarity is that we're all scientifically minded nerds, I would say.
And a little quirky, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Super cool, like badass people.
How do you farm mushrooms?
Pasteurizing sawdust and introducing the fungus to the clean sawdust, and then allowing the mushroom to colonize out of the sawdust. I think the true lifeblood of the substrate is the hardwood shavings, and my favorite supplementation is loose soybean hull, and I will mix these two together with the right amount of water and put it into the bags that are steaming now. The entire world is bacteria, just add water. You know, the whole world is contaminants. And the fungus is just like anything, it's competing to eat that food source first. And by pasteurizing the substrate, we kill all the competitors, or we stunt the competitors for an adequate amount of time. I'm boiling about 7 inches of water at the bottom of this pot for 24 hours. I have someone helping me mix and bagging and handing me the bags. I fold them and load them in the cooker. The more bags I make, the more successful I am. So the inoculation process is maybe the most sensitive time in cultivating mushrooms, and that's where I introduce the fungal culture to the freshly cleaned substrate. And when I finish introducing the fungal tissue in the lab shed, I bring them into here. And what's happening in here is the fungus that I put into the bag. I'll start with this one. You can see this fungus was only put in here maybe 3 or 4 days ago, and it's starting to colonize this brown sawdust. Within 2 weeks, the brown sawdust will be totally consolidated into a big brick of mycelium. So they're here for about 2 weeks or however long it takes for them to fully colonize, and then they'll go into the fruiting chamber. We are in a retrofitted shipping container where I have matched the parameters to grow gourmet mushrooms. So I have fresh air pumping in, I have cool air conditioning, and I keep really high humidity. I cultivate a variety of oyster mushrooms. This is Pleurotus jamor, the pink oyster mushroom. Oyster mushrooms can actually metabolize petroleum products, like can break down oil and stuff like that. I cultivate lion's mane, Hericium erinaceus mushrooms. I cultivate blue and gray oyster mushrooms. I cultivate Piopino, Cyclocebae agaritas, and I grow king trumpets. I encounter all the things that all farmers encounter, the timeline of these. Everything you see here is from effort I made 4 weeks ago. So my future depends on my effort today. It's a world of problems, but it's totally worth it. I mean, I'm hanging out, solving problems barefoot in the yard and not answering to anyone. And the other weeks are dedicated to selling them. I mean, harvest is every single day. These pink oyster mushrooms did not exist 36 hours ago, something like that. They're so fast-paced. So I got to harvest them and sell them quickly. over and over again. The farmers market attracts a lot of people, especially around the new year. They want to change their lives, to do local produce and things like that. So every week I see newcomers or people that have never seen anything I'm selling before. But the vast majority are regulars, real foodie enthusiasts. My general clientele is restaurants. I'm my only delivery man. I pitch it and everything myself. I go knock on the door and walk back to the kitchen and see if the chef's interested. And the chef is usually interested. The name of my business and all of my social media tags and everything is Swampy Appleseed, and that came from a username on this mushroom forum when I was like 15 years old. Both my parents were science teachers. I think they pushed that in us anyway, but I continued through academics till I got an English degree. That was my undergrad. And even then, all my professors, everyone knew me as a mushroom enthusiast. I had been speaking at state parks and doing things just because I liked to do it. And then I graduated, and here I am in the wide world with my undergrad in literature. And what am I going to do? I was going to go to grad school. And so here I am applying to grad schools and then also finding my first quarter buckets of pecan truffles. I was dirt poor. I was working at a hardware store, but I went to my first chef and I'm like, I found these in the ground. I'm a mushroom enthusiast. And he was like, yeah, how much are they? He didn't haggle me at all. And that was the exact moment where it was passion to money. And this is only my third year, something like that, but I'm doing okay now. If I have a flat tire, I'll just buy a new tire. It's such a good feeling. So there it was, passion to freedom.